You are Locked On Clippers Postcast, part of Locked On Los Angeles on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, I am here, Pete Fox. Thank you for joining me here on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, Clippers Postcast, and on the Locked On Clippers podcast feed. Another dominant win for the Clippers. I don't think any of us thought it would go any other way. No letdown for this team of late, especially against a banged-up Memphis Grizz team. We'll get into the details here in just a little bit. I have been covering sports in LA for quite a long time. Since 2007, I worked for ESPN Radio and NBC Sports Radio. So I'm very familiar with the landscape of sports in the Los Angeles area. I appreciate you guys joining us here on our YouTube channel. It's a very cool thing that we're doing here, this new part of Locked On Sports, where we're doing postcasts right after the game. We're coming on and discussing the action of the night. So tonight we'll get into this dominant Clippers win over the Memphis Grizz. 128-119 the final, and it definitely was not that close. They pulled the ripcord at about the 4-minute mark. Tonight's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase at Jase, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com and use the code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. That's JASE medical.com. Well, this Clipper team coming in, obviously riding a good streak all the way back to December 1st. We've been talking about it a lot. Probably the best run in the NBA since December 1st. They are now 16-3. The starting lineup consistency is a huge part of it. The same 5 guys out there tonight as have been over this period of time: Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Ivica Zubac, James Harden, and Terrence Mann. When you look at the Grizz, you think, wow, tough things going on there in Memphis. Derrick Rose was out. Steven Adams is out. Marcus Smart is out recently with a finger issue. And, of course, Ja Morant is done for the season with a torn labrum. So they are struggling. That being said, they made it interesting for the first quarter. I give some credit to the Memphis Grizz for that, and I give probably a little credit to the Clippers as well, because that's, to a certain extent, in my opinion, that's the Clippers' MO. They don't come out running and gunning. They kind of feel out their opponent. So the first quarters have been very tight, regardless of who they're playing. They haven't been down too dramatically or up too dramatically in a first quarter. It's all been very even. So that was, again, the case tonight. They came out and just kind of, feeling out their opponent and taking it easy, not getting too crazy, kind of just, wading into the shallow end. They have the second best defense in the league, statistically speaking, right now. And I'm sure they knew coming into this one, the Memphis Grizz are the worst offensive team in the league. Again, we didn't expect this to be a tight game, but I think Memphis kept it interesting. They did the best they could with the hand they were dealt. Kawhi was a big part of keeping them in it in the first quarter with 8 points. He finished tonight with 22. Of course, Paul George had the big night with 37 points. We'll get into the details of his game here in a little bit, and in the second segment during our bucket list when we go through the top buckets of the night. But he was 7 of 10 from beyond the arc for 37 points, leading the Clippers, as he or Kawhi Leonard has done frequently during this run dating back to December 1st. My question as I watched this game was, do Kawhi Leonard and Paul George kind of discuss who's going to be the guy, or do they kind of just feel it out as they're going? Hey, you're having a big night, I'm going to feed you, whatever. Or do they push each other? Of course, I'm assuming it's probably a little of both or all of those things. It's not just one of them. It's probably a myriad of both. I've talked to professional athletes in various sports, and when their teammates are going well, it causes them to also want to keep up, to try to outdo their teammate in a friendly sort of way. Not sort of, I don't want to make them look bad, but I don't want to be the lesser man. So I feel like Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are definitely doing that right now. They are pushing each other back and forth. But tonight it was nice. There were quite a few times when Kawhi would hit a three, and then next time down the floor, he'd find an open Paul George who would hit a three, and then Paul George would return the favor, pass into Kawhi, who would hit a three. I think the common theme there is that when said player was open, they would hit the three. The Clippers in the second quarter absolutely had it rolling. 16 of 21. At one point, they were 11 for 11. I believe at that point, they had their shooting percentage up to like 60+%. They finished the night at 55% from the floor, 49 of 89, and 15 of 31 from beyond the arc for 48%. Those are numbers that you absolutely have to love. The second quarter is when it really started to happen for them. They started to pull away. They started to get a little comfortable. Amir Coffey started to play well. He had a nice night all in all, but he started to make some key buckets off of the bench for them. He played 26 minutes. Perfect. I always love it when a player goes perfect. That has to feel really good when you head back to the locker room when the game is all over and done with it. You didn't miss a shot. It's like a golfer not missing, anything inside of 10 feet. So he was 6 of 6. Had 1 3 and 13 points on the night. So he played very well in that second quarter. He's one of these guys that brings the energy the way Russell Westbrook has been doing as well. I don't think it's he's a player that you can really find too many negative things to comment on. He's always out there hustling, and he's not making bad passes or taking foolish shots. He just goes out there and plays a clean game night after night. James Harden also a big second quarter for the Clippers when things were really, I don't think we were worried that they were going to lose, but it wasn't, this comfortable cruise that we expected. So those two guys, a big part of a 15-3 run in the second quarter, and the defensive intensity definitely turned up for this Clipper team, who is, as I mentioned, the number 2 defense in the league. So as much offense as the Clippers are able to provide, I guess we just have to be really, really confident and feeling good about the fact that they're playing defense as well. And I don't know if that's credit to guys that are known to play defense like Kawhi Leonard, or if it's credit to guys like James Harden who were not necessarily used to playing defense, now playing defense and buying into this team defense mentality. I think it's probably the latter. Guys like James Harden coming out and playing defense are huge for this team. So a big first half, more than anything, a big second quarter where Paul George had 4 of his 7 threes. And we'll talk about the let up or the lack thereof, because that's kind of the biggest thing when you're playing a team that is inferior to you when you're rolling. I guess the biggest issue that kind of lingers in the back of your head is, let's keep it going. Let's not let up and let this team that is banged up beat us. So we'll get into that next, along with Bucket List. Thank you for joining us here on the Locked On Clippers postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel and listening on the Locked On Clippers podcast feed. All right, let's talk about Jase Medical, sponsor of the show tonight. I know when it comes to sports, we try to escape our normal life with sports and, the craziness and the realities of real life. But can we talk for just a minute about preparing for real life? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade, which is pretty scary. This is that time of year when people are getting sick. Can't imagine a more helpless feeling than if someone like your mother or your wife or your daughter gets sick while a supply chain issue is happening and you can't get what you need. It keeps you from life-saving medication that is very needed. Thankfully, we'll be okay because of Jase Medical. The Jase Pack is 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, among others. This stuff could happen to any of us, which is very scary. So visit jasemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. Will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than it is right now. Go to jasemedical.com and use the offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your first order. That's jasemedical.com and the code LOCKEDON for 20% off your first order. $20 off, which is probably more than 20% off, but nonetheless a good deal. All right, let's get into our bucket list here where we run through the biggest buckets, in my opinion, the most meaningful buckets of the night that kept the Clippers close and helped them more than anything pull away. And as I mentioned, in the first quarter, there wasn't a lot to rave about. There wasn't much to feel comfortable about and like boast about. So I don't really have any big buckets. It was a rather lethargic, boring first quarter. And I think the Clippers have been doing that a lot regularly. They didn't feel the need to come out running and gunning. They've trying to feel out their opponents to see what the Memphis Grizzlies were going to offer tonight. And again, Clippers led by as many as 21 in this one. But in the first quarter, it was relatively tight. The Grizz were taking care of business, and the Clippers were also, just kind of being a tad bit lackadaisical to me. In the end, the Clippers win it only by 9, 128-119. When leading by 21, that's not indicative of the way this game went. But in the second, they started to pull away. As I said, Amir Coffey, a big part of that. He had a 3 at the 11:02 mark that gave them a 1-point deficit. Then at the 10:30 mark, another bucket from Amir Coffey to give them the lead. So he was part of the first lead they had of the night. At the 9:37 mark, James Harden hit a 3 and the foul. The hoop and the harm gave them a 36-29 lead, part of that 15-3 run. Then at the 8:08 mark, Tice, that's right, Daniel Tice, the big man, caught a pass at the top of the key, was wide open. It was one of those, he catches the ball, stands there, looks around, nobody's crashing in, nobody's defending. He goes, all right, well, I'm going to shoot then. Brian Sieben said he can make that, and he did to make it 41-34. On to the third quarter, James Harden, another 3 at the 9:10 mark, make it 77-59. Harden would finish tonight with those 2 threes. Terrence Mann hit a 3 at the 6:08 mark as the Clippers continue to pull away. It was now 82-65. Kawhi Leonard a 3 at the 4:51 mark to make it 87-66 just before the half, where the Clippers would lead 21 points at that point. At the end of the third, correction. They were up 100-79 at that point. At this point, we kind of felt like, well, it's basically over. Let's hope nobody gets hurt. Let's hope we don't take our foot off the gas and we just continue to run through the tape, as they like to say. On to the fourth quarter, where Norman Powell, who has been good off the bench, another big night. He had 11, not huge, but 5 of 8. Missed both of his threes, but he did have a nice bucket at the 7:20 mark, was fouled, went to the line for the old-fashioned three-point play, made the free throw to make it 111-93. Then Paul George, a bucket and the foul at the 6:50 mark to make it 114-96. These are exciting buckets when you're front running, when you're pounding your chest as a Clipper fan. This is probably the point when many Grizz fans started heading towards the exits because Paul George got rolling. He hit his 7th 3 of the night in the fourth quarter at the 4:49 mark to make it 120-102. And this is right around the time Tyronn Lue started pulling the starters from the game. And the Grizz were hanging in there making threes, but at this point it was over and the bench players were in there. And consequently, the Grizz made it a little bit more interesting, but ultimately an easy win for the Clippers. They are now 25-13 and level their record on the road to 9-9. So a comfortable win. And I think I look at this game and I go, yeah, this is what we expected. And I feel good about the play because you had one of the 3 big stars going off for 37. Paul George with 3 threes, perfect from the line. 2 steals, also a couple of steals for Kawhi Leonard. Those are the numbers I like to see. Kawhi Leonard with 4 assists. James Harden, 9 assists. and 11 points. And the reason I bring that up, which we're going to talk about here in our next break, is it's not called the parlay, a pick combination that I had working tonight on PrizePicks, which did not go well for me at all. I got a little cocky after a win last night. I had Terrence Mann to go above 8.5 points. He did not do that. He finished with 7. I had Karl Anthony Towns on the points, rebounds, and assists, and that number was 35.5. He finished with a total of 31, I believe. So that was 32. So that was also below. Ivica Zubats, his above number was 23.5. He was below with 17. And I had James Harden on the points, rebound, and assists to go above 30.5. He finished at 21. So all in all, I was 0 for 4. That was not what you're looking for. Pretty ugly. Let's talk about PrizePicks a little bit more. All right, PrizePicks is a fantasy app, which is a lot of fun. I'm hooked, to say the least. It is an interesting way to make the games a little bit more fun, to have a little bit more action, if you will. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy platform in North America. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of others, including pros and sharks, you pick more or less, above or below, on 2 to 6 players. You do have to have at least 2, and their stat projections for the night, and watch the winnings roll in. With the basketball season now here and rolling along, you can pick combo projections across 2 sports. I've done that quite frequently, and that's also fun when 2 things are happening at the same time. I have a feeling on Sunday when we've got Clippers and T-Wolves and Super Wild Card Weekend, there's going to be a lot of action and a lot of channel flipping, so you can do your own pick combos, projections across 2 sports, quick deposits and withdrawals, which is a huge thing. Simple, easy gameplay options, and an enormous selection of players and stat types. The DFS Fantasy Sports app is very easy to use. I have to say, making my initial deposit was simple and painless and hassle-free. I also received 100% bonus up to $100. It's a lot of fun and makes any game more interesting. So check them out. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit. Again, they will match it up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Not a good night for me with the PrizePicks, but hey, that's the way it goes. You win some, you lose some. You have to take the losses, with the wins. You can't win them all. They say when it comes to wagering, if you are successful, like 56% of the time, that you are a professional, that you're winning. I find that number to be just crazy and fascinating. Like, you only got to win a little over 50% of the time. You think, oh, that's easy, right? No, wrong. That's why it's fun and challenging. You got to do your homework. And one of the other cool things on PrizePicks is that they give you stats. They tell you what this player has done in the 5 previous games. So that's another cool thing to check out. All right, Clippers win their 25th game of the year. They improved to 16-3 since December 1st. 128-119 the final. And all in all, I would say, this is the kind of game that you feel good about as a fan, as a player. Tyronn Lue didn't seem too upset at any point in time. I've noticed that through 7 or 8 games since I started doing the Clippers postcast here on Locked On, that I don't mention Tyronn Lue's name all that much. And I started thinking, is that a good thing or a bad thing? And I started investigating and digging a little deeper. I've never personally covered Tyronn Lue as a coach. I've seen him interviewed. I've obviously read his quotes a lot. All in all, it feels like Tyronn Lue is one of the more subdued coaches in the league. He gets upset here and there when calls don't go his way. But at the end of the day, I feel like Tyronn Lue is the classic definition of a player's coach. He's not getting into anybody. He's not yelling at his players. He doesn't get too high or too low. And I think that's a good thing, especially for this veteran-laden Clippers team. At some point, I'm assuming when things start to get a little bit more tight for the Clippers, that, we'll investigate his actions, his moves a little bit more, and we'll comment and we'll say that was a tough one right there. I don't think he made the right call or the right play or the right players change, rotation. So right now, though, it's a good place to be with not a lot of comments about Tyronn Lue. He is smart enough to say, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This team is rolling. Our starting rotation is taking care of business, and one of the best starting 5 in the league, top 10 in minutes together on the floor in the league. And that's all you can ask for. He's got a deep bench. Daniel Tice comes in to sub for Ivica Zubac, who, by the way, tonight wasn't all that great. I expected another big night out of him, but he did not have it. Although 11 boards, only 6 points in 22 minutes. Daniel Tice, 7 points, including 1-3 in 22 minutes. And Russell Westbrook, another big night. To a certain extent, I feel like he heard what I had to say about my criticism. He made the bunnies. He didn't miss a ton of shots tonight, especially up close, although he was just under 50%, going 5 of 11, but he had 12 points, including a 3 in 16 minutes. So a good night for him, bringing the energy. And again, Norman Powell with 11 points in 24 minutes. So all in all, you look at this game and you go, all right, that was exactly what we expected, right? It was a comfortable win. They didn't really let up. They played defense, although they didn't need to play much, with the Grizz being the worst offensive team in the league. But I think, this is the type of game where one guy is going to pull away, and tonight that was Paul George. It's also the type of game where some guys are going to not necessarily put their foot on the throttle, Ivica Zubac being one of them. He's been very good of late. In the pregame, they talked a lot about his development of the left-handed hook shot, which has become very efficient for him, and he's a finisher. I've talked about it a lot lately. This guy, under the basket, gets the ball through the hoop. He makes a very high percentage of shots. Tonight, just 2 of 5. So, it's expected. It's understandable. He wasn't having a great night. Clippers are rolling. Paul George is rolling. There's no reason to stress all that much. Terrence Mann, also a little subpar, 3 of 8 for 7 points. And I blame that on myself for putting them both in my pick combinations. All right, let's get to superlatives for the night. The first one, obviously, pretty easy. Paul George, the most popular player on the floor, leading all players, 37 points, 12 of 18 in just 35 minutes. Brian Seaman and Fratello, the coach, the czar of the illustrator or whatever, telestrator, whatever that is. I got to remember his name and be able to repeat it accurately. But Brian Seaman and Mike Fratello commented that they really appreciated the fact that the Stars didn't play 40 minutes. Paul George at 35 and Kawhi Leonard at 29, and those were the highest minutes for the Clippers on the team. Again, Paul George perfect from the free throw line. He had 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, and 1 block. I guess it would only be fair to mention that he had 4 turnovers, but who cares, right? With 37 points and 7 threes, that's okay. We don't have a problem with that. Are most likely to succeed. And by this, I mean night after night after night, he performs and produces. Kawhi Leonard, as I mentioned in the first quarter, when they were kind of counter-punching and slow playing it and feeling each other out, Kawhi Leonard had 8 points and was a big part of keeping them in this game. Now, had they fallen down by 7 or 8, I don't know that I'd have been worried. I feel like they still would have come back and won the game. But having a good start, hanging with your opponent is important. And that's what the Clippers have been doing lately. They haven't been pulling away. They haven't been falling behind. The first quarter has been kind of a slow dance. Let's just kind of get to know each other a little better tonight. And Kawhi Leonard, a big part of the reason that the Clippers hung in there, found their footing. He scored 8 points, finishing the night with 22. And finally, just 3 superlatives tonight. Our most ambitious player was Russell Westbrook. Basically, This is the number I give to the guy or the award I give to the guy who puts up the biggest numbers in the least amount of time. Russell Westbrook has been doing that frequently of late. In just 16 minutes, he had 1 3, part of 12 on the night. He only had 2 assists and 2 rebounds and no blocks, no steals, but brought a lot of energy. So very ambitious. That's kind of the thing with Russell Westbrook. You got to dig a little deeper. You got to get below the surface. You have to appreciate what he does away from the ball, bringing energy and firing his teammates up. He usually has more assists, just 2 tonight. I was surprised by that. But all in all, a good performance in 16 minutes with 12 points. So 5 of 11 from the floor, just under 50%. James Harden, a little bit more on the assisting train, the dishing, the handing out of dimes, 11 points. I'm sorry, 11. Where did it go? That's 11 rebounds for Zubats. 9 assists, for James Harden. And he continues to make it look so easy, finding guys. It's not just the fast break dish in the lane. It's I'm going to dribble to the top of the key and feed somebody under the basket or in the corner. He makes passes that a lot of other people get intercepted or, knocked out of bounds or something. He makes these difficult passes look so easy. And they're probably coming with more energy and pace than it looks like on television. But he looks like he's just floating them into people, and the defense can't deal with it. I don't know if it's because he's doing it on in a very sly manner, or it's quick, or I can't quite figure out how these long cross-court passes from James Harden aren't knocked away or intercepted more. He finds his teammates time after time, night after night, and it is a big part of the reason this Clipper team has gone on this roll. I mean, James Harden right now for this team, to me, up till this point in time, I'm not going to say most valuable. I can't really call him the 6th man because he's a starter, so I don't know what you would call him. I don't know how you would describe it. He's the almost valuable player. You can't if you were going to give the MVP to somebody on this team right now, it'd either have to be Paul George or Kawhi Leonard. It couldn't be James Harden, but he would absolutely deserve honorable mention or something. He's a huge part of their success right now, and I'm happy to see it. So congratulations to him and this Clipper team who win their 25th game of the year, 128-119 over the Grizz in Memphis. They are off tomorrow, and then a big one on Sunday in Minnesota against the first place Timberwolves. Make sure you join me after that one is over on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, or you can listen on the Locked On Clippers podcast feed. Thank you once again for joining us here on the Locked On Sports YouTube channel on the Locked On Sports Network. Have a good night. We will talk again on Sunday. Once again, Clippers win it 128-119.